Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great, as I always say, and in this video, it's all about Alaska. So, if that sounds like your cup of tea, then definitely pull up a stump with me, and we'll kind of delve into some mythology and stuff and some stories about Alaska. The last 10 minutes of the video is going to be me talking about just Alaskan cryptids and mythology and all that stuff, so I will leave a chapter if you just want to skip that and just want the stories. That's fine too. So anyways, without further ado, let's jump into it. Thank you for watching. I feel like I have to share this crazy stuff with someone. Last week, on the morning of a friend's birthday, something happened while we were chilling on top of a mountain. It's a favorite local party spot, or at least one of them anyways. It was my friend's first time spending one whole morning away from his phone and civilization. Of course, he brought a car outlet phone charger that he had left plugged into my ATV. Anyway, the morning was pretty normal, as normal as one could expect this far north into the heart of Alaska. I'm downplaying the weirdness quite a bit. To him, it was like the Twilight Zone. Growing up in the deep woods has jaded me in a way, I suppose. We saw all kinds of cool and very strange cloud paintings, I like to call them, till the sun started to slowly work its way up again. At this point, the northern lights showed up. I thought it was pretty legit. It actually looked more like the Path of Souls that some people refer to, like a long, glorious bridge of light from west to east. It was at that point that my buddy started to get weirded out, saying that he could see little lights moving along the path like spirits. While we were so invested in watching the pretty lights, I happened to notice something really silly, I guess, out of the corner of my eye. Just up the trail from our fire, I had my ATV parked, maybe 35 or so meters away. My dog noticed that whatever the hell it was before I did, and started to whimper and whine, and he ran off to hide on the downside of the trail, away from us. I couldn't be bothered with him because of what I saw. I'm not saying it was Bigfoot, but I don't know, it must have been half-foot or something, because it was pale, snowy white, so white that it was almost glowing kinda. I'd say at least 5 feet tall, standing right in front of my ATV. The thing was just chilling there, hiding in front of it and out of our sight. So naturally, I didn't want to make my buddy worry or anything, and I've been known to see things here in the woods like my whole life. But then, of course, the dude flips his shit. Oh my god, what the hell is that? I just laugh and shrug, kinda giving him a half dumb look like, wait, you see that too? No way. So we're both just kind of dumbfounded staring at this thing as it peeks out from behind my ATV, kind of nervously trying to hide itself from us. That's when I notice it grabbing something from my wheeler, so I get all screw that and I walk up the trail toward my ATV. The thing stayed for a moment until it noticed me coming, and then it sort of just scampered off into the bush. It was at this point that my dog, a pit mastiff, the biggest pussy in the woods that night, comes lumbering up behind me and gets brave, growling and barking, chasing the thing out into the brush. So I get to the front of my wheeler and immediately start looking at the ground for, yep, sure enough, these weird monkey paw-like footprints. I knelt down, not quite believing what I saw. I put my hand over the tracks and I could still feel the residual heat from where it was standing. All in all, I was rather amused, I guess, chuckling even. My buddy piped up with, "Hey yo, what the hell? My phone charger's gone." Sure enough, this little half Bigfoot thing stole the car outlet charger from the 12-volt socket on the side of the wheeler and ran off with it. That night got a whole lot weirder after that, but I just want to share that little bit. I've seen and lived with these things my whole life. This was the first time one was brave enough to show itself to a white boy from Mississippi for no good reason, other than I guess it needed his 12-volt car charger. This one other night, I was in my house doing just Alaskan stuff during a really cold Alaskan winter. I was just chilling, exploring the vast network of crazy rabbit holes that you can get yourself into online. I start to get bored, so I go outside to start the utterly insurmountable task of shoveling the snow from the walkway out front. I'm enjoying the calm, almost sort of warm, minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit or so weather. I'm moving a lot of snow and kind of feeling good about myself at that little point. Out of nowhere, I get pelted by a small snowball from behind, and I turn around and I say, "Who's there?" There's no one around. My roommate's inside doing dumb stuff. I can see him in the window. I think, whatever, I guess, I'll just keep shoveling. About half an hour goes by, and then, bam, I get a chunk of ice to the back of the neck. And I think, hey, that hurt. And I look around. Again, there's nobody. I'm mildly irritated, and I decide to take a break, smoke a cigarette, and maybe have a drink of whiskey. Suddenly I realize that the branches of the nearby spruce trees and alders are blowing in the wind, and I start to think, wait a minute, there's no wind. I notice that the branches stop whenever I stare at them, and then suddenly, at the corner of my eye, I catch movement. I turn around to focus on it, but it immediately stops. I notice the branches on the other trees farther away and out of my line of sight are still moving, and there's still no wind. I see a quick movement in the trees. It's almost like squirrels trying to fight each other. I think there's definitely no squirrels in these trees at minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit. I finally see one of these things jump from one tree about 30 feet up to another. I'm starting to think that I'm tripping. I go in and grab my 1022 with the scope, and I manage to sight in whatever the hell this thing is. And I think, what the hell is this? I'm literally looking at the face of this demonic-looking, evil-faced little monkey thing. I have no words that describe what it looked like. I start to notice that there's more than one of them. These things seem to be everywhere, all the time, all around. Like I said, I see things a lot. Suddenly, I become with a extreme sense of being hunted, better described as being watched. The forest is still. I start to notice the faces, the same faces all over, everywhere, every tree. I have some sort of little flashback to the last time that I remember seeing these things up here, when I was about 9 years old. I start to get really spooked. I try to push the crazy out of my head, and I think, seriously, that can't be what I'm seeing, could it? The more I deny them, the more they try to screw with me. I manage to coast through the day, but it gets worse in the dark. That same night, I have this insane urge to walk out into the darkness, and well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I take the dog with me. The dog is noping the whole time. I see the demonic monkey things again, all around, sitting up in the trees, where literally nothing would ever sit in a tree. I feel drawn down a familiar trail, so I decide to walk along the pathways. That being hunted feeling suddenly hits me like a brick wall. My dog cowers next to me and refuses to come any further. Nervously, I scan my surroundings and I notice something extremely wrong about the woods. The deep dark woods are never this still or quiet, even at night. I look up the trail and I notice some sort of circle of alder branches on the ground just ahead. I know it's a circle. That's That's not a circle, that's really old. That's some bad medicine, some bad voodoo. That's when I hear them, laughing, giggling, taunting. I yell at them to shut up. I turn around and run back inside while they throw pine cones, spruce ends, and ice at me the whole way. They are literally all around the house watching me and taunting me at night. They sing in this weird song, this weird language, or maybe my brain just heard it as a language. I start to pick out English, but I don't think it was English. I think it was just my brain kind of messing with me, but it sounded like sharp teeth, sharper claws, sharp claws, sharper teeth, over and over again, chanting. I somehow do manage to sleep that night, and since I'm an Alaskan native, a lot of weird Indian shit happens in dreamland. I wake up remembering everything about them. I can now laugh at them to their faces. So, that was a really strange one. The only reason why I share it is because just about everyone that lives here has come to me to either confirm or to ask just what the hell they are, and I can't really do them justice. This is just my personal opinion on this. I noticed how he said that he sees them up in the trees where things wouldn't normally sit. This makes me think that they weren't physical, that they were some kind of spiritual being that maybe thrive off of fear. I don't know. There's not a whole lot of information given about them, but just a thought, some food for thought. A few nights after that last encounter, I was walking home from a bar, and I could hear my little sister's voice echoing from the woods. It was those things trying to trick me and scare me. They made my sister's voice scream for help. Then, they called me with my own voice. They called my name. They whistled at me like you would call your dog. They then used my own voice and my sister's voices to laugh at me when I realized what was going on. That stuff scared the hell out of me that night. And when asked where he was from, he said that he was from interior Alaska, near the Alaskan Triangle, and that he was Alaskan native. So, those were some of his stories. This takes place back in 2010. I was sort of homeless. I had joined my friend who was living in a bus on some property that was 20 miles outside of Homer. He had been watching the property for some relatives, and all that was on it was his bus and some random junk. This property is relatively isolated, as the nearest neighbors are in Homer. It was winter, around 7ish, and that means practically pitch black apart from the lights of traffic. On this stretch of road, there is often no traffic at all. The road just goes into the wilderness, and this road is just one lane. It has thick forests on both sides, and the only sign of civilization besides the road is the single power line on the right-hand side. This night, though, was rather nice. There wasn't too much snowfall, and the winds were favorable. We had been driving a good distance toward our goal, the bus, and things got a little weird. My friend who was driving was the first to notice and pointed out by stating, "What the F is that?" To which I promptly looked in the direction that he had been. The first thing I noticed was the power lines shaking. We did have winds and snowfall, but the lines were shaking a lot more violently than the current weather would have provided, if you know what I mean. The second and most notable thing I noticed was that the lines only shook along the path of the car. Specifically, the lines connected between the two pieces of poles were the ones shaking, especially the ones that we were driving along. Once we passed another set of them, the lines from the next set would shake just as aggressively, leaving the ones that we just passed pretty much still. Then, after some rearranging for a better view, I saw, I guess, it. From what I could make out in the darkness, it was an even darker creature, running along the line in a lanky manner. It had long appendages that reached as quickly as it strode. I could barely make out a head. Mind you, all that we had illuminating the area were the headlights from the van. But it did look like that its head was thin, slender type thing from what I could see. During my stay at the bus, we didn't see anything unusual prior or since this particular incident. Basically, the way I describe it doesn't do it justice. It kinda looked like almost a weird-looking raptor in appearance. We continued driving along as we watched more in awe than terror. I recall glancing at the speedometer, which was 37 miles an hour, so this creature was moving pretty damn fast and below 20 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures. After a good distance of this thing following us, or at least we think it was following us, our fear took that final grip, and we sped off down the road until the power lines no longer shook. We arrived at the bus, closed the windows, and covered them with what we could, and then we couldn't sleep, so we stayed up all night and played Halo 2 until dawn. Real brave, eh? So for this next part of the video, I thought I would talk about an article that I saw on the Anchorage Daily News. It was from 2012, but updated in 2017. It just talks about 5 mythical creatures of the last frontier, also known as Alaska, and I thought it was interesting, so I figure I'll go through it. The first one that's listed here, and I doubt I'm saying this right, it's an Inuit creature known as the Kalupalik. It's described as being human-like and having green skin. It has very long hair and very long fingernails, lives in the sea, and it hums like a siren to entice children to come closer to the water. And it wears it's a type of parka worn by Inuit women to hold a child against the back, and it's like a built-in baby pouch that's just below the hood. I explain it because the name is Amautic? I don't know, so I figured I'd explain it better, and parents and elders would tell their disobedient children that if they were to wander too close to the seashore, then the Kalupalik would come on shore, put them in her pouch, and take them back to the sea with her to raise them as her own children, never to see their family again. So, I know I'm not a kid, but if I ever visit Alaska and I hear humming coming from the water, I'm just gonna take off. I'm not sticking around for that. So the next one is the Alaskan Bushman, or the Tornat. It says stories of the Alaskan Bushmen, or Tornats, have been told since the first humans crossed the Bering Land Bridge. In the beginning, the story went that the Inuit and the Tornats lived peacefully in villages near each other and shared common hunting grounds. The Inuit people often built and used kayaks for hunting. The Tornats, however, were unable to master the art of building kayaks. They were very aware of the advantage of having and using one, though. One story goes that a young Tornat borrowed a young Inuit's kayak without permission and damaged it. The young Inuit became very angry and stabbed the Tornat in the nape of the neck while he was sleeping, killing him. The rest of the Tornats feared that they too would be killed by the Inuit and fled the country, rarely to be seen again. Since that time, though, many stories have come out of the bush of hunters disappearing, later found dead and mangled, or never seen again. Apparently, hunters and the Tornats no longer peacefully shared common hunting grounds. Early spring, my family and the Panillo clan, a Hawaiian family we were very close to, would pack up and head to Willow for a week to fish for salmon in the Deshka and Little Sutsina rivers. One particularly rainy and cold spring, my father, my brother, and I were pulling in salmon after salmon when a nasty, skunky, musky smell floated toward us. It suddenly dawned on me that most of the other fishing families had quietly and quickly disappeared. Mr. Penillo always fished with a shotgun by his side. My own father was always armed with a Colt 45, and now he unsnapped the holster and quietly told us to reel our gear and pack up. Since we'd only been fishing for about an hour and it wasn't anywhere near dark, all of us kids were a little confused, but knowing not to question our dads when they gave us an order like that, we did as we were told. I whispered to my dad, asking what was wrong. He whispered back, and he paused for a second and said, "It's a bear." But I wasn't so sure. I'd never smelled a bear like that. As we were crossing over the railroad bridge, I remember looking at some trees that had been uprooted and then stuck in the ground upside down, and I often wondered why or how somebody could do that. I learned many years later that it was a telltale sign of Bigfoot territory. I guess I'll never know if that was a bear or a Bigfoot that displaced us from fishing that evening, but I do know that this was the last time our families ever fished at that river. It was also the first and only time all the kids got to sleep, or at least tried to, in the camp trailer instead of tents. And next up is the Adlet. From the Inuit legend, the Adlet were a race of people that are said to have the lower body of a dog and the upper body of a human. Typically, they're believed to be the offspring of an Inuit woman and a dog, brought about through unnatural mating or witchcraft. The woman gave birth to 10 children, half of whom were dogs, the other half Adlet. The family was sent to a remote island because they were so voracious, and their grandfather would hunt for them and provide them with meat. Every day, the dog-like husband was supposed to swim from the island to the mainland, where the grandfather was supposed to fill a pair of boots wrapped around the dog's neck with meat. Eventually, the grandfather filled the boots with rocks, drowning the husband. Fearing for her children's lives, the mother sent them inland, where they spawned more Adlet. The Adlet are typically portrayed as aggressive and savage-like, mostly like werewolves, who will attack men when they cross paths. Although the Adlet legend is based off of far north mythology, a version of the story also appears in Greenland, where the Adlet are dubbed, a word that I won't even attempt to say, but I'll put it on screen right here. A few researchers have linked it to the European tales of the werewolf as well. Now, I heard a version of this story a long time ago, but instead of it being like half wolf children, it was that the husband was a guy and then was imprisoned inside the body of a wolf because of some kind of witchcraft. And part of the curse was that the children would change into wolves during certain times of the year. It didn't specify full moons, it just said that they would change. So I kind of wonder if those two are related or not. The last couple I have here are called the Tiserhawk and the Keelet. The Tiserhawk are large, snake-like creatures that are believed to roam Alaskan waters. They are described as having a 7-foot-long head with a tail ending that's kind of like a flipper, for a total of 12 to 15 feet long. The Tiserhawk were said to snatch people from docks and piers. The Tiserhawk have some similarities to that of lightning snakes, occasionally associated with the thunderbird of southeast Alaska and the Pacific Northwest native cultures. Once the thunderbird would spot prey, like a killer whale, it would launch a lightning snake, or a heatwave, as a living weapon thrown by them from the skies, like lightning. And the last one I have here is called the Keelet. It's described as an evil earth spirit that takes the form of a black hairless dog with only hair on its feet. It's much like the black dogs of Great Britain, following travelers at night, attacking them and killing them. If a trail of dog tracks is found that suddenly disappear, it's believed that the Keelet is nearby. I think it's wild too that from Europe all the way to Alaska. There's a very vast distance there, and they both have stories of giant black dogs or mysterious black dogs. A lot of cultures have them, so I think it kind of adds credence to it. I don't know. Let me know your opinion. And if you didn't mind me rambling on about mythology and stuff and creatures that I found cool, then definitely like and subscribe. And if you have your own story, then I have an email in the description that you can send it to if you want to. And I have links down there too that you can support the channel if you want to, and all that good stuff. But I hope you enjoyed pulling up a stump. I hope you didn't mind my rambling. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you all for watching.